Welcome to Zen Mind Temple. Tonight, you will discover a powerful secret for millennia. Zen wise ones have found eternal peace amidst chaos through simple awakening. In the next 3 hours, let ancient wisdom flow over your thoughts like moonlight, smoothing every crease of anxiety. Adjust your pillow. Let your body sink into the most comfortable position, as if the earth gently holds you. Now take a deep breath with me. Feel the cool air fill your chest as you inhale, and let all tension dissolve with the breath as you exhale. As you drift towards sleep, let this feeling of acceptance stay with you. Let it wrap around you like a soft blanket, keeping you warm and safe in the knowledge that whatever comes and goes in your life, you remain whole, capable, and at peace. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation, deeper into the present moment. Peace comes from within. It is not something we find outside ourselves, but something we uncover when we let go of the need to control, to hold on, to make things different than they are. It is the natural state of our minds once we clear away the clutter of fear and resistance. Kenji found this peace by the stream that day, and he carried it with him always. He learned to walk through life like the stream, flowing, adapting, accepting. He learned that every ending is a beginning, every loss a chance to grow, every broken jar a reminder to cherish what is here. Now, as we move forward from this story, let us carry this wisdom with us. Let us remember that impermanence is not our enemy, but our teacher. It teaches us to live fully, to love deeply, and to find peace in the midst of change. Now, let's leave Kenji and his valley behind and journey to a new place, a quiet temple, where a master and his student are about to share a cup of tea and a lesson that will change the student's life forever. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the image of the valley fade gently, like mist burning off a lake at dawn. Now, imagine yourself standing at the gate of a small temple, nestled in the shadow of a mountain. The wooden gate is old, its surface worn smooth by time and weather, but it stands firm, as if rooted in the earth. Behind it, you can see a courtyard paved with stones that fit together like a puzzle, each one polished by the feet of countless monks and visitors over the years. A few pine trees stand sentinel in the corners, their needles a deep, rich green that contrasts with the gray of the stones and the brown of the wooden buildings. The air here smells of incense, sweet and earthy, like sandalwood and jasmine mixed, with the scent of rain-soaked wood. Somewhere, a bell rings softly, its tone lingering in the air, then fading into a silence that feels alive, as if the temple itself is breathing. You hear the distant murmur of voices, low and steady, like a stream flowing over stones. As you step through the gate, you find yourself in a room with tatami mats that feel soft and springy under your feet. The walls are made of wood, their natural grain visible, and paper screens let in a soft, diffused light that turns everything a warm golden hue. In the center of the room, a low table sits on the mats, and on it, a small stove with a kettle, a tea bowl, a bamboo whisk, and a small jar of matcha powder Seated at the table are two people. An old monk with a shaven head and a face lined like a map of a river delta. His eyes warm and wise, and a younger man, perhaps a scholar, judging by his fine robes and the books he carries under his arm. The old monk is Master Nan-in, a Zen teacher known throughout the land for his simple wisdom. The young man has traveled far to meet him, eager to learn about Zen. "Please sit," Master Nan-in says, gesturing to the mat across from him. His voice is soft, but there is a strength in it, like the roots of an old tree. The young man sits, crossing his legs carefully, his back straight. He sets his books down beside him, and you can see that their pages are filled with notes, questions, theories, arguments. He has spent years studying philosophy and religion, and he is eager to test his knowledge against the wisdom of the Zen master. "I have come to learn about Zen," the young man says, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "I have read all the sacred texts, studied all the teachings, but I feel there is something missing, something I cannot find in books." Master Nan-in nods. "I see," he says. "Shall we have tea?" The young man looks surprised, but he nods. "Yes, thank you, Master." Nan-in reaches for the kettle, which is singing softly, and pours hot water into the tea bowl. He swirls the water around, warming the bowl, then pours it out into a small basin. He adds a spoonful of matcha powder to the bowl, then pours in just enough hot water to make a paste. He picks up the bamboo whisk and begins to whisk the paste, moving his wrist in a quick circular motion. The sound of the whisk against the bowl is soft, like rain on a leaf dot as he works. The young man begins to talk. He talks about the nature of reality, about the self, about the teachings of the Buddha. He quotes from ancient texts, argues points with himself, explains his theories with confidence. He is intelligent, articulate, and clearly very proud of. His knowledge. Master Nan-in listens quietly, his eyes on the tea. When the paste is smooth, he adds more hot water and continues whisking until the tea is frothy, a bright green color that shimmers in the light. Then he holds the bowl out to the young man, but as he does, he keeps pouring, even though the bowl is already full. Tea spills over the edges, onto the table, onto the young man's robes. "Stop!" the young man exclaims, jumping back a little. "The bowl is full. You can't add any more tea." Master Nan-in stops pouring. He looks at the young man, his eyes calm. "You are like this tea bowl," he says. "You are so full of your own ideas, your own knowledge, that there is no room for anything new. How can I teach you Zen when you are already full?" The young man sits silently for a moment, staring at the spilled tea, at the wet spot on his robe, at the look in Master Nan-in's eyes. Then, slowly, his face begins to change. The pride fades, replaced by a look of understanding, like a light turning on in a dark room. "I see," he says, his voice much softer than before. "I am sorry, Master. I came here thinking I knew so much, but I see now that I know nothing." Master Nan-in smiles. "That is the first step," he says, "to empty the cup. Only then can it be filled." He pours out the remaining tea, washes the bowl, and starts again. This time, when he hands the bowl to the young man, it is filled just right. The young man takes it with both hands, bowing his head slightly, and sips the tea slowly, savoring the flavor, the bitterness, the sweetness, the earthiness. For the first time since he arrived, he is quiet. He is present. This story of Master Nanin and the tea bowl is one of the most famous koans in Zen Buddhism. A koan is a story, dialogue, question, or statement that is used in Zen practice to provoke doubt and to help the practitioner break free from the constraints of logical thinking. Koans are not meant to be solved in the traditional sense. Instead, they are meant to open the mind to a deeper understanding, one that lies beyond words and concepts. The lesson of this koan is simple, but profound. If we are to learn, if we are to grow, if we are to experience new things, we must first empty ourselves of our preconceptions, our assumptions, our need to be right. We must approach life with an open mind, a beginner's mind, what the Zen masters call shoshin. Shoshin is the attitude of openness, eagerness, and lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even when studying at an advanced level, just as a beginner would. Buddha taught this too. He said, just as a raft is useful to cross a river, but once you reach the other side, you do not carry it on your back. So too are the teachings useful to cross over suffering. But once you reach enlightenment, you do not cling to them. In other words, the teachings are tools, not truths in themselves. If we cling to them, if we believe that our understanding is the only correct one, they become a burden, a barrier to true understanding. This is true not just of spiritual teachings, but of all aspects of life. How many times have we refused to listen to someone else's opinion because we were so sure we were right? How many times have we missed out on new experiences because they didn't fit with our idea of what we should do? How many times have we held on to anger or resentment because we were too proud to admit we might be wrong? Modern psychology calls this confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. It is a natural human tendency. Our brains are wired to make sense of the world by creating patterns, and once those patterns are established, we resist information that disrupts them. But this bias limits our growth, our relationships, and our ability to see the world as it truly is. Neuroscientists have found that when we encounter information that contradicts our beliefs, the amygdala, the part of the brain associated with emotional reactions, becomes active, triggering a sense of threat. This is why we often feel defensive or angry when someone challenges our ideas. Our brains are interpreting the challenge as a threat to our sense of self. But when we practice emptying the cup, when we approach new information with curiosity, instead of defensiveness, we activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with rational thinking, empathy, and self-awareness. This allows us to see things from new perspectives, to learn, to grow, and to connect with others more deeply. That peace comes from within. And one of the ways we cultivate that peace is by letting go of our need to be right, to control, to have all. The answers. When we empty ourselves of these things, we create space for peace to enter. Peace comes from within. It is not found in being certain, but in being open. It is not found in being in control, but in being present now. Let's take a moment to practice emptying our own cups. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment, then exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, imagine that your mind is like a cup filled with thoughts, opinions, worries, and judgments. With each exhale, imagine pouring out some of that content, not because it is bad or wrong, but because it is taking up space. Imagine pouring out the need to be right, the need to control, the need to know everything. Imagine pouring out the judgments you have about yourself and others, the worries about the past and future. With each inhale, imagine filling the empty space with curiosity, with openness, with peace. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, say silently to yourself, "My cup is empty. I am ready to receive." Notice how this feels. Notice if there is resistance, if part of you wants to hold on to those thoughts and beliefs. That is okay. Just notice it without judgment and let it be. Peace comes from within. And sometimes that peace is found in the empty spaces, in the moments when we are not trying to be anything or have anything, but simply are. The young man in the story stayed with Master Nanin for many years, learning the ways of Zen. He learned to approach each day with an empty cup, to listen more than he spoke, to observe more than he judged, to be curious more than he was certain. And in time, he found the peace he had been searching for in books, a peace that came not from knowledge, but from openness. He learned that wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about asking the right questions. It is not about being certain, but about being aware. It is not about holding on to things, but about letting them flow through you. Like water through a stream. This is the gift of the empty cup. It allows life to flow in, unimpeded by our own ideas of what it should be. It allows us to experience the world as it is, not as we think it is. It allows us to connect with others authentically, without the barrier of our own egos. So, what does this mean for you tonight? It means that whatever thoughts are keeping you awake, worries, judgments, plans, regrets, you can learn to hold them lightly. You can learn to pour them out, even if just for a moment, and make space for peace. Tonight's practice is to empty your cup before you sleep. Take a few moments to sit quietly and think about a belief or opinion you hold strongly. It could be about yourself, about someone else, or about the world. It could be something small, like your preference for a certain type of music, or something bigger, like your views on a political issue. Once you have that belief in mind, ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? Not to challenge yourself, but to open yourself. What if there's another way to see this? What if there's something I'm missing? Then take a deep breath and imagine pouring that belief out of your cup just for a moment. Imagine what it would feel like to be free from the need to hold on to it. Now, let your mind rest in that empty space. Notice how it feels. Notice if there is a sense of lightness, of freedom. Finally, take another deep breath and say silently to yourself, I am open. I am curious. I am at peace. As you drift towards sleep, let this feeling of openness stay with you. Let it remind you that you don't have to have all the answers, that it's okay to be uncertain, that the most important thing is to be present. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation, deeper into the present moment. Peace comes from within, and when we empty our cups, we make room for that peace to grow. The young man eventually left the temple, but he carried the lesson of the empty cup with him always. He became a teacher himself, and when students came to him, eager to learn, he would often say, "First, let us have tea." And as he poured, he would watch their faces, looking for the moment when they realized that true learning begins with an empty cup dot. As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember to approach each moment with openness, with curiosity, with a beginner's mind. Let us remember that the most important wisdom is not found in what we know, but in what we are willing to learn. Now, let's leave the temple and the sound of whisking tea behind, and journey to a mountain path where two travelers are about to encounter a storm and a lesson about finding peace in the midst of chaos. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the warmth of the temple room fade, and let your imagination carry you to a narrow mountain path. The path winds its way up the side of a steep hill, paved with loose stones that shift underfoot. On either side, dense forests grow oak and maple trees with leaves that rustle in the breeze, their branches weaving together to form a canopy overhead. Sunlight filters through the leaves in dappled patches, lighting up the dust motes that float in the air. The air here smells of pine and earth, with a hint of something sharper like the promise of rain. You can hear the distant call of a hawk and the scurry of small animals in the underbrush. Somewhere below, a stream gurgles, its sound growing louder as you walk. Two travelers are making their way up the path. The first is an older man, his hair gray at the temples, his face weathered by years of sun and wind. He walks slowly, his steps steady, his eyes focused on the path ahead. He carries a small pack slung over one shoulder, and in his hand, he holds a walking stick that taps gently against the stones as he moves. His name is Taro, and he has been traveling these mountains for decades. The second traveler is younger, perhaps in his 20s, with a head full of dark hair and a face that shows the eagerness and impatience of youth. His name is Takeshi, and this is his first journey into the mountains. He walks quickly, his strides long, often stepping ahead of Taro, then turning to wait for him, shifting from foot to foot. He carries a larger pack, which seems to weigh him down, and he frequently adjusts the straps, as if uncomfortable. "Hurry, Taro," Takeshi calls out, looking back over his shoulder. "We need to reach the summit before evening. The guidebook says there's a temple there where we can stay the night." Taro smiles, but keeps his pace steady. "The mountain will be here when we arrive," he says. "Rushing won't make it any closer." Takeshi sighs, but slows down a little, waiting for Taro to catch up. But what if it rains? The sky looks dark. Taro looks up at the sky, where clouds are gathering thick, gray, and heavy. "Then we will get wet," he says simply. Takeshi frowns. "But we didn't bring proper reindeer. My pack is full of supplies, but I didn't think to bring a raincoat. What if we get cold? What if the path becomes too slippery to climb? What if we can't find the temple in the dark?" Taro continues walking, his stick tapping against the stones. "Then we will deal with those things when they happen," he says. "Worrying about them now won't change what is to come. It will only steal the peace of the present moment." Takeshi opens his mouth to argue, but before he can speak, a drop of water hits his cheek. He looks up, and another drop lands on his forehead, and another, and another. Within moments, the sky opens up, and rain begins to fall hard, cold. Drops that soak through their clothes in seconds. "See?" Takashi exclaims, his voice raised over the sound of the rain. "I told you it would rain. Now we're going to get soaked, and we'll probably get lost." And he stops suddenly as a clap of thunder booms overhead, shaking the ground. He flinches, then looks at Taro, expecting to see fear or frustration in his face. But Taro is standing still, his head tilted back, his eyes closed, a small smile on his face. "What are you doing?" Takeshi shouts, "We need to find shelter." Taro opens his eyes and looks at Takeshi. "The rain is refreshing," he says. "It has been a hot day." Takeshi stares at him, incredulous. "Refreshing? It's freezing and dangerous." "We could be struck by lightning." Taro nods. "We could. But running in fear won't prevent that. Let's keep walking. The temple is still ahead, and we'll reach it when we reach it." With that, Taro starts walking again, his steps as steady as before. The rain slides off his face, but he doesn't seem to notice. He adjusts his pack once, then continues up the path, his walking stick tapping against the stones. Keeping time like a drumbeat, Takeshi stands there for a moment, shivering, his teeth chattering. The rain is coming down harder now, soaking through his clothes to his skin. The wind has picked up, blowing the rain sideways, stinging his face. He looks around, searching for shelter, a cave, a overhanging rock, anything, but there is nothing. The trees offer some protection, but not enough. "Come on, Takeshi," Taro calls from ahead. "The path won't wait for us." Takeshi mutters to himself, but starts walking again, his steps now heavy and uneven. He slips on a whetstone, nearly falling, and catches himself on a tree branch, which scrapes his hand. "This is terrible," he says, more to himself than to Taro. "Absolutely terrible. Why did I listen to you? We should have stayed in the village." Taro doesn't respond. He just keeps walking, his focus on the path as they climb higher. The rain grows even heavier. The path becomes muddy, and the stones are slippery. Takeshi slips again, this time falling to his knees in the mud. He lets out a cry of frustration, and when he stands up, his pants are caked with mud, his hands scraped and dirty. "I can't do this," he says, his voice breaking. "It's too hard. Let's go back." Taro stops and turns to face him. The rain is pouring off the brim of his hat, but his eyes are calm, steady. "We can go back," he says, "but the rain will still be here. The mud will still be here. The only thing that will change is that we will have turned away from our goal. But why bother?" Takeshi says, "We're wet, we're cold, we're tired. What's the point?" Taro takes a step toward Takeshi and places a hand on his shoulder. His touch is warm, even through the wet fabric of Takeshi's shirt. "The point is not reaching the temple, Takeshi," he says. The point is the walking. The point is being here, now, in this moment, even if it's uncomfortable. The rain is part of the journey. The mud is part of the journey. The struggle is part of the journey. To run from it is to run from life itself. Takeshi looks at Taro, his eyes wide. But it hurts, he says. It's unpleasant. Yes, Taro says. It is. But pain and pleasure are both part of life. They come and go, like the rain. If we only allow ourselves to be happy when things are easy, when the sun is shining and the path is smooth, we will miss most of what life has to offer. We will spend our days waiting for the storm to pass, instead of learning to dance in the rain. Takeshi is silent for a moment, the rain streaming down his face. He looks at Taro, who is standing there, calm and steady, as if the storm around them is nothing more than a gentle breeze. He looks at the path ahead, which disappears into the mist and rain. He looks at his own hands, dirty and scraped, and his wet, muddy clothes. And then something shifts. It's a small thing, almost imperceptible, but it's there. The tension in his shoulders eases. His breath slows. He stops shivering, not because he's warm, but because he's no longer fighting the cold. What do I do? He asks, his voice quieter now. Walk, Taro says. One step at a time. Focus on the path in front of you, not on how far you have to go. Feel the rain on your skin, the mud under your feet. Be here now. Takeshi nods. He takes a deep breath, filling his lungs with the cool, rainy air. He sets his shoulders and takes a step forward, then another, and another. He finds that when he focuses on the path, on placing one foot in front of the other, on the sensation of the rain, and the mud and the wind, he doesn't feel so cold. He doesn't feel so tired. He doesn't feel so afraid. They walk on, side by side now, their steps in rhythm. The rain continues to fall, but it no longer feels like an enemy. It's just rainwater falling from the sky, refreshing the earth, making the world feel clean and new. After what feels like hours, but is probably only a little over an hour, they round a bend in the path and see it. The temple, perched on a small plateau near the summit. Its wooden walls are dark with rain, but its windows glow with warm light. Smoke curls from its chimney, carrying the scent of wood smoke, and something sweet like cinnamon or honey. Takeshi feels a surge of joy, but it's different from the eagerness he felt earlier. It's a quiet joy, a sense of accomplishment that comes not just from reaching the destination, but from the journey itself. Out as they approach the temple, a monk in a brown robe opens the door, smiling when he sees them. Welcome, he says. We've been expecting you. Come in, dry off, and warm yourselves by the fire. I've made tea. They step inside, and the warmth of the fire hits them immediately. The monk shows them to a room where they can change into dry clothes simple, robes like his own, and then leads them to a common room where a fire crackles in a stone hearth. A kettle sings on a small stove, and the air smells of tea and something baking in the oven as they sit by the fire, wrapping their hands around mugs of hot tea. Takeshi looks at Taro. Thank you, he says, for teaching me to walk in the rain. Taro smiles. I didn't teach you anything, he says. The rain taught you. I just helped you listen. This story of Taro and Takeshi is a lesson in finding peace in the midst of chaos. It is a reminder that life is full of storms, literal and metaphorical, and that our happiness does not depend on avoiding them, but on how we meet them. The Buddha taught this in his first sermon, when he spoke of the Four Noble Truths. The first truth is that life is dukkha, often translated as suffering, but more accurately understood as unsatisfactoriness or dis-ease. It is the recognition that life is full of challenges: birth, aging, illness, death, separation from those we love, and contact with those we do not. These things are inevitable. They are part of the human experience. The second noble truth is that the cause of dukkha is tanha craving or attachment. It is our desire for things to be different than they are, for pleasure to last, for pain to end, for life to be predictable and safe. This craving is what causes us to suffer when the storm comes. The third noble truth is that dukkha can be ended, that there is a way to find peace, even in the midst of life's challenges. The fourth noble truth is the Noble Eightfold Path, the way to end dukkha. This path includes right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. At its heart is mindfulness, the ability to be present with what is, without judgment. Or resistance dot. This is what Taro was practicing on the mountain path. He was not denying the rain, or the cold, or the difficulty of the journey. He was accepting them fully and completely. And in that acceptance, he found peace. Modern psychology calls this acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, a form of psychotherapy that encourages people to accept their thoughts and feelings, rather than fighting against them, and to commit to actions that align with their values. Research has shown that ACT is effective in treating a wide range of mental health conditions, including anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. Neuroscientists have found that when we practice acceptance, when we allow ourselves to feel difficult, emotions without judgment, the activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, decreases, while activity in the prefrontal cortex, associated with rational thinking and self-awareness, increases. This helps us to respond to challenges with clarity and calm, rather than reacting with fear or anger. Peace comes from within. It is not the absence of storm, but the ability to find calm in the middle of it. It is not about changing our circumstances, but about changing our relationship to them. Peace comes from within. It is found in the present moment, in the act of walking the path, one step at a time. Now, let's take a moment to practice this acceptance. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment. Then exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, bring to mind a storm in your life, something difficult or challenging that you are facing right now. It could be a physical discomfort, an emotional pain, a difficult relationship, or a stressful situation. As you hold this storm in your mind, notice how your body reacts. Is there tension in your chest? A tightness in your throat? A knot in your stomach? Just notice these sensations without trying to change them. Now, as you inhale, imagine breathing into the storm, acknowledging it, accepting it as part of your experience right now. As you exhale, imagine releasing any resistance you feel toward it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to want it, but you can accept that it is here for now. Take another deep breath in and say silently to yourself, "This is my storm. I accept it for now." Exhale and say, "I am safe. I am strong. I can walk through this." Notice how this feels. Notice if there is a sense of relief, even a small one, in accepting what is. Peace comes from within. And when we stop fighting against our storms, we discover that we have the strength to walk through them. Takeshi thought about Taro's lesson long after their journey up the mountain. He thought about it during the difficult times that followed, when he lost his job, when a close friend moved away, when he faced illness. Each time, he remembered the rain and how he had found peace not by avoiding it, but by walking through it. He learned that the storms of life are not meant to break us, but to teach us. They teach us resilience and strength, and the importance of being present. They teach us that we are capable of more than we think. This is the gift of acceptance. It allows us to meet life on its own terms, without fear or resistance. It allows us to find peace in the midst of chaos and strength in the midst of weakness. So, what does this mean for you tonight? It means that whatever storm you are facing, whether it's worry about the future, regret about the past, or pain in the present, you can learn to walk through it. You don't have to fix it, or make it go away, or even understand it. You just have to be present with it, one step at a time. Tonight's practice is to meet your storm with acceptance. Before you go to sleep, take a few moments to sit quietly and bring to mind the most difficult thing in your life right now. It could be something big or small, something ongoing, or something that just happened. Once you have that thing in mind, say to yourself, "This is difficult, it hurts, and it is part of my life right now." Then take a deep breath and imagine placing your hand on your heart. Feel the warmth of your hand and the steady beat of your heart beneath it. This is your life force, your strength, your resilience. Say silently to yourself, "I accept this. I am strong enough to walk through it. I am not alone." As you drift toward sleep, let this feeling of acceptance stay with you. Let it remind you that you are capable of handling whatever life brings, and that peace is always available to you, even in the midst of the storm. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation, deeper into the present moment. Peace comes from within. And when we learn to walk through the rain, we discover that we are never really caught in the storm. We are always moving toward the sun. Takeshi and Taro stayed at the temple for several days, until the rain stopped and the sun came out. They walked down the mountain together, their steps light, their hearts full. Takeshi no longer worried about what might happen or hurried to reach the next destination. He walked in the present, savoring each step, each breath, each moment. As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember that life's storms are temporary, but the strength we gain from walking through them is permanent. Let us remember that peace is not found in avoiding difficulty, but in meeting it with an open heart and a steady mind. Now, let's leave the mountain path and the memory of rain behind and journey to a quiet monastery where a monk is about, to discover a truth about the nature of the mind, one that will change his understanding of himself and the world forever. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the sound of rain on the mountain path fade, and let your mind settle into a new scene. Imagine a quiet monastery, its walls made of sun-bleached stone, nestled in a valley where the air is still and clear. The monastery is surrounded by a garden where flowers bloom in vibrant hues: purple lilacs, pink peonies, yellow chrysanthemums, and where a small pond sits, its surface as smooth as glass, reflecting the blue sky above Dot inside the monastery, in a simple room with wooden floors and white walls. A young monk named Daichi sits cross-legged on a straw mat. In front of him, on a low table, rests a small mirror, an old one, its silver surface slightly clouded around the edges, but still clear enough to show his reflection. Daichi has been sitting here for hours, staring at the mirror, his furrowed in concentration. Daichi is troubled. For weeks, he has been plagued by negative doubts about his faith, anger at a fellow monk who wronged him, worry about his family back home. These thoughts seem to come out of nowhere, unbidden, and once they arrive, they stay like unwanted guests. They keep him awake at night, distract him during his meditation, and make it hard for him to find peace. He has asked the elder monks for advice, and they have told him to clear his mind, but he doesn't know how. It feels like his mind is a room full of clutter, and no matter how hard he tries to tidy it up, the clutter just keeps piling up. Today, the head monk, Master Ren, gave him this mirror. "Study this," he said simply, before leaving Daichi. Alone with his thoughts, so Daichi stares at the mirror, trying to understand what Master Ren wants him to see. He sees his own reflection, his shaven head, his dark eyes, the worried lines on his forehead. He sees the flaws in the mirror itself, the small cracks, the cloudiness around the edges. He sees the way the light from the window catches the surface, creating bright spots that make it hard to see clearly. "What am I supposed to learn from this?" he mutters to himself. "It's just a mirror. It doesn't do anything. It just shows what's in front of it." As he says these words, something clicks. He leans forward, squinting at the mirror. It's true, the mirror doesn't judge what it reflects. It doesn't get angry at the flaws it shows, or sad about the things it can't change. It just reflects, without attachment, without resistance. But when the mirror gets dirty, when dust covers its surface or water clouds it, it no longer reflects clearly. It shows a distorted image, a version of reality that isn't true. Is that it? Daichi says. Is my mind like this mirror? When it's clear, it sees things as they are. When it's clouded by thoughts and emotions, it shows a distorted version of reality. He reaches out and touches the mirror, leaving a smudge of his finger on the surface. His reflection becomes blurry, his face distorted. "This is what my anger does," he thinks. "This is what my worry does. It smudges the mirror of my mind, so I can't see clearly." He takes a cloth and wipes the mirror clean, then sets it back down. His reflection is clear again. But how do I keep the mirror clean? He asks. How do I stop the smudges from appearing? Just then, Master Ren enters the room. He sees Daiichi staring at the mirror and smiles. "You have been sitting here a long time," he says. "What have you learned?" Daiichi looks up at Master Ren, his eyes hopeful. "The mind is like a mirror," he says. "When it's clear, it reflects reality as it is. When it's clouded by thoughts and emotions, it shows a distorted version. But I don't know how to keep it clear. The smudges keep appearing." Master Ren nods. "You are on the right track," he says. "But you are making a mistake. You think you need to prevent the smudges from appearing, but that is impossible. Dust will always settle on the mirror. Water will always cloud it. That is the nature of things." Daiichi looks confused. "Then what's the point? If the mirror is always going to get dirty, why bother trying to keep it clean?" "Because the mirror itself is not the dust," Master Ren says. "The mirror is not the water. The mirror is the space in which these things appear. It is untouched by them, unharmed by them. Even when it's clouded, the mirror itself remains. Perfect, whole, unchanged." He picks up the mirror, then sets it down in a patch of sunlight. "Look," he says. The light catches the dust on the surface, but the mirror itself is still capable of reflecting. It just needs to be wiped clean. Daiichi thinks about this. "So my mind is like the mirror," he says. "The thoughts and emotions are like the dust and water. They cloud my perception, but they don't change the essence of my mind. The essence is always clear, always perfect. I just need to wipe away the cloudiness." Master Ren smiles. "Not exactly," he says. "Wiping away. The cloudiness helps, but it's not the solution. The solution is to realize that the cloudiness is not part of the mirror. It's temporary. It comes and goes, but the mirror remains. In the same way, your thoughts and emotions are temporary. They come and go, but your true nature, your Buddha nature, is always clear, always peaceful." He pauses, then quotes a passage from the Platform Sutra, a text that records the teachings of the sixth patriarch of Zen, Huineng. Originally, nothing exists. Where can dust alight? Daiichi repeats these words to himself. Originally, nothing exists. Where can dust alight? He feels a sense of peace wash over him, like a wave breaking on the shore. Huineng was a revolutionary figure in Zen Buddhism. Born into a poor family, he was illiterate, but he had a deep understanding of the nature of the mind. His most famous teaching is that enlightenment is not something we need to attain, but something we already possess. It is our true nature, and it is only hidden by our attachments, our desires, and our delusions. Huineng taught that the mind is like a mirror. It is inherently clear, but it becomes clouded by dust, by our thoughts, emotions, and judgments. The goal of Zen practice is not to get rid of the dust, but to realize that the dust is not part of the mirror. It is temporary, and it cannot affect the mirror's true nature. This is a radical idea. It suggests that we are not our thoughts, or our emotions, or our experiences. We are the space in which these things arise and fall away. We are the mirror, not the reflections. Modern psychology supports this idea in its own way. Research has shown that we are not our thoughts. We are the observers of our thoughts. This is the basis of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, which helps people with depression. and anxiety by teaching them to observe their thoughts without judgment, rather than identifying with them. Neuroscientists have found that when we practice observing our thoughts without attachment, we activate the default mode network in a healthy way, rather than letting it run wild with rumination and worry. We create a space between ourselves and our thoughts, a space where we can choose how to respond, rather than reacting automatically. Peace comes from within. It is not the absence of thoughts and emotions, but the realization that we are not defined by them. It is the recognition that our true nature is clear, peaceful, and unchanged by the comings and goings of the mind. Peace comes from within. It is the mirror, not the reflections. It is the space in which everything else exists. Now, let's take a moment to practice this. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose. Count to 4. Hold it for a moment and exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, bring your attention to your thoughts. Notice them without judgment, without attachment. Imagine that your mind is a clear blue sky and your thoughts are clouds. The clouds come and go, but the sky remains unchanged. Some clouds are dark and stormy. Some are light and fluffy, but none of them can change the sky itself. As you continue to breathe, imagine yourself as the sky, not the clouds. You are the space in which the clouds exist, but you are not the clouds. You are vast, open, and peaceful. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, say silently to yourself, I am not my thoughts. I am the space in which they arise. Notice how this feels. Notice if there is a sense of relief, of freedom in this realization that peace comes from within. It is the sky, not the clouds. It is always there, waiting for us to recognize it. Daiichi sat with this realization for a long time, watching his thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky. He didn't try to stop them, or change them, or make them go away. He just observed them with the same detachment the mirror showed. And as he did, something amazing happened. The thoughts lost their power over him. They still came doubts, anger, worry, but they no longer troubled him. They were just thoughts passing through his mind, like birds flying through the sky. He understood now what Master Ren meant. The mind is like a mirror, and its true nature is clear. The dust of thoughts and emotions will always appear, but they don't have to cloud our vision. We can wipe them away, not by fighting against them, but by recognizing that they are not part of us. In the days that followed, Daiichi continued to practice this way of being. When negative thoughts arose, he would acknowledge them, then let them go, returning his attention to the present moment. He found that the more he did this, the easier it became. The mirror of his mind stayed clear for longer periods, and when dust did settle, it was easier to wipe away. He also learned that this practice is not about perfection. There were still days when his mind was clouded, days when he got caught up in his thoughts and forgot to be present. But he no longer beat himself up for these moments. He just recognized them and started again. This is the gift of realizing that our true nature is clear and peaceful. It takes the pressure off. We don't have to be perfect or have a perfect mind. We just have to remember that beneath the thoughts and emotions, we are already whole. So, what does this mean for you? tonight. It means that the thoughts keeping you awake, the worries, the regrets, the fears, are not who you are. They are just clouds in the sky of your mind, passing through. They don't define you, and they can't harm you, unless you let them. Tonight's practice is to observe your thoughts without attachment. Before you go to sleep, take a few moments to sit quietly and close your eyes. Bring your attention to your breath, feeling it move in and out of your body as thoughts arise, and they will just notice them. Don't judge them, don't analyze them, don't try to make them go away. Just say to yourself, "That's a thought," then return your attention to your breath. If you find yourself getting caught up in a thought, don't worry. It's normal. Just notice that you've gotten caught up and gently return to your breath. Do this for 5 minutes or as long as you like. As you do, remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. You are the clear, peaceful space in which everything else exists. As you drift towards sleep, carry this realization with you. Let it remind you that no matter what thoughts arise, your true nature remains unchanged, clear, peaceful, and whole. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation, deeper into the realization of your true nature. Peace comes from within. It is not something we have to find, but something we have to remember. It is our birthright, our true nature, waiting for us to recognize it. Daiichi eventually became a master himself, teaching others the lesson of the mirror. He would often say, "The mind is like a mirror. It reflects whatever is in front of it, but it is not what it reflects." Remember this, and you will always find peace. As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember that we are not our thoughts, or our emotions, or our experiences. We are the clear, peaceful space in which these things arise and fall away. Let us remember that our true nature is already perfect, already whole. Now, let's leave the monastery and the mirror behind and journey to a small garden where a monk is about to learn a lesson about dealing with negative emotions, one that involves weeds, sunlight, and the power of acceptance. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the quiet of the monastery room fade, and let your senses turn to the warmth of sunlight on skin, the soft rustle of leaves, and the earthy scent of turned soil. Imagine a small garden, enclosed by a low stone wall, where the morning sun casts long shadows, and where every plant, from the tallest tree to the smallest flower, has its place. This is a Zen garden, tended with care, its design simple yet profound. Each stone, each plant, chosen with intention. In this garden, a monk named Kato bends to his work. He wears simple clothes, stained with dirt, and his hands are rough from years of gardening. Kato has been assigned to care for this garden, and he takes his responsibility seriously. Each morning, he rises at dawn, fills a bucket with water, and sets to work watering the flowers, pruning the shrubs, raking the gravel into perfect lines. But there is a problem: weeds. No matter how hard Kato works, no matter how carefully, he pulls them out, they keep coming back. They spring up between the stones, shun rao twine around the stems of the flowers, and steal the sunlight and nutrients that the other plants need to thrive. At first, Kaito is patient. He pulls the weeds gently, one by one, making sure to get the roots so they won't grow back. But when they reappear a few days later, he grows frustrated. He pulls them more roughly, yanking them out, sometimes uprooting the flowers along with them. He mutters to himself as he works, his jaw tight with anger. "Why won't you stay away?" he says to the weeds. "Can't you see you're not wanted here?" One morning, as Kato is on his knees, furiously pulling weeds from around a patch of delicate irises, the head gardener, Master Hana, approaches. Master Hana is an old woman with a face as weathered as the stones in the garden and hands that move slowly, but with purpose. She has tended gardens for decades, and her presence seems to calm even the most unruly plants. She watches Kato for a moment, saying nothing. Then she kneels down beside him, picking up a small weed that Kato has missed, a tiny thing with yellow flowers, barely noticeable. "This is a dandelion," she says, holding it up to the light. "It's very resilient. Its roots go deep. And even if you pull off the flower, the roots will send up a new one. It's been around for millions of years, surviving droughts, floods, and even the most determined gardeners." Kato scowls. "That's why I hate it," he says. "It's stubborn. It won't give up." Master Hana smiles. "Is that why you hate it? Or is it because it doesn't fit your idea of what the garden should be?" She asks. "You want the garden to be perfect, neat, orderly, with only the plants you choose. But nature doesn't work that way. Weeds are part of the garden too. They are part of the ecosystem, feeding the soil, attracting pollinators, even protecting the other plants from erosion." Kato looks skeptical. "But they're ruining the garden," he says. "They're taking over, are they?" "Master," Hana says. She gestures to the garden around them. "Look at how beautiful it is, even with the weeds. The flowers still bloom. The trees still grow. The garden is more than just the plants you choose. It's the interplay between all of them. The flowers and the weeds, the sunlight and the shade, the rain and the drought. It is the tension between order and chaos that makes it alive." Kato follows her gaze, really seeing the garden for the first time in weeks. He notices how the bright yellow of the dandelions contrasts with the purple of the irises, making both colors seem more vibrant. He sees how a butterfly lands on a weed and flies to a flower, pollinating it as it goes. He realizes that the garden is more beautiful with the weeds than it would be without them, that their presence adds depth and complexity to the landscape. But they still need to be managed, he says, confused. Otherwise, they'll take over completely. Of course, Master Hana says, but there's a difference between managing and fighting. When you fight the weeds, you give them power. You let them anger you, distract you, and blind you to the beauty around you. You end up destroying the garden in your attempt to protect it. She sets the dandelion down gently and reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small trowel. "Watch," she says. She approaches a clump of weeds growing next to a rose bush, and instead of yanking them out, She uses the trowel to loosen the soil around them, then lifts them out carefully, roots and all. She doesn't get angry when a piece of root breaks off or when she misses a small one. She just continues, her movements calm and deliberate. When you work with the weeds rather than against them, you become part of the garden's rhythm, she says. You accept that they are here, and you deal with them with patience and respect. You don't let them define your experience of the garden. You focus on the beauty, the growth, the life that surrounds you, even as you tend to the parts that need tending. Cato watches her, and something shifts inside him. He realizes that his anger at the weeds is not about the weeds themselves. It's about his own attachment to an idea of perfection. He thinks the garden should be a certain way, and when it's not, he suffers. He picks up his own trowel, and for the first time, he approaches the weeds with curiosity rather than anger. He notices their shapes, their colors, the way they grow toward the sun. He pulls them out gently, not with force, but with intention. And when he misses one, he doesn't get upset. He just makes a note to come back to it later as he works. He feels a sense of peace that he hasn't felt in weeks. The garden no longer feels like a battle to be won, but a living thing to be nurtured, flaws and all. Let the quiet of the monastery room fade, and let your senses turn to the warmth of sunlight on skin, the soft rustle of leaves, and the earthy scent of turned soil. Imagine a small garden, enclosed by a low stone wall, where the morning sun casts long shadows, and where every plant, from the tallest tree to the smallest flower, has its place. This is a Zen garden, tended with care, its design simple yet profound. Each stone, each plant, chosen with intention. In this garden, a monk named Cato bends to his work. He wears simple clothes, stained with dirt, and his hands are rough from years of gardening. Cato has been assigned to care for this garden, and he takes his responsibility seriously. Each morning, he rises at dawn, fills a bucket with water, and sets to work watering the flowers, pruning the shrubs, raking the gravel into perfect lines. But there is a problem: weeds. No matter how hard Cato works, no matter how carefully he pulls them out, they keep coming back. They spring up between the stones, shun rao twine around the stems of the flowers, and steal the sunlight and nutrients that the other plants need to thrive. At first, Cato is patient. He pulls the weeds gently, one by one, making sure to get the roots so they won't grow back. But when they reappear a few days later, he grows frustrated. He pulls them more roughly, yanking them out, sometimes uprooting the flowers along with them. He mutters to himself as he works, his jaw tight with anger. "Why won't you stay away?" he says to the weeds. "Can't you see you're not wanted here?" One morning, as Cato is on his knees, furiously pulling weeds from around a patch of delicate irises, the head gardener, Master Hana, approaches. Master Hana is an old woman with a face as weathered as the stones in the garden and hands that move slowly, but with purpose. She has tended gardens for decades, and her presence seems to calm even the most unruly plants. She watches Cato for a moment, saying nothing. Then she kneels down beside him, picking up a small weed that Cato has missed, a tiny thing with yellow flowers, barely noticeable. "This is a dandelion," she says, holding it up to the light. "It's very resilient. Its roots go deep, and even if you pull off the flower, the roots will send up a new one. It's been around for millions of years, surviving droughts, floods, and even the most determined gardeners. Cato scowls. "That's why I hate it," he says. "It's stubborn. It won't give up." Master Hannah smiles. "Is that why you hate it? Or is it because it doesn't fit your idea of what the garden should be?" She asks. "You want the garden to be perfect neat, orderly, with only the plants you choose. But nature doesn't work that way. Weeds are part of the garden too. They are part of the ecosystem, feeding the soil, attracting pollinators, even protecting the other plants from erosion." Cato looks skeptical. "But they're ruining the garden," he says. "They're taking over, are they?" "Master," Hannah says. She gestures to the garden around them. "Look at how beautiful it is, even with the weeds. The flowers still bloom. The trees still grow. The garden is more than just the plants you choose. It's the interplay between all of them. The flowers and the weeds, the sunlight and the shade, the rain and the drought. It is the tension between order and chaos that makes it alive." Cato follows her gaze, really seeing the garden for the first time in weeks. He notices how the bright yellow of the dandelions contrasts with the purple of the irises, making both colors seem more vibrant. He sees how a butterfly lands on a weed, then flies to a flower, pollinating it as it goes. He realizes that the garden is more beautiful with the weeds than it would be without them, that their presence adds depth and complexity to the landscape. But they still need to be managed. He says, confused. Otherwise, they'll take over completely. "Of course," Master Hannah says, "but there's a difference between managing and fighting. When you fight the weeds, you give them power. You let them anger you, distract you, and blind you to the beauty around you. You end up destroying the garden in your attempt to protect it." She sets the dandelion down gently and reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small trowel. "Watch," she says. She approaches a clump of weeds growing next to a rose bush, and instead of yanking them out, she uses the trowel to loosen the soil around them, then lifts them out carefully, roots and all. She doesn't get angry when a piece of root breaks off or when she misses a small one. She just continues, her movements calm and deliberate. When you work with the weeds rather than against them, you become part of the garden's rhythm, she says. You accept that they are here, and you deal with them with patience and respect. You don't let them define your experience of the garden. You focus on the beauty, the growth, the life that surrounds you, even as you tend to the parts that need tending. Cato watches her, and something shifts inside him. He realizes that his anger at the weeds is not about the weeds themselves. It's about his own attachment to an idea of perfection. He thinks the garden should be a certain way, and when it's not, he suffers. He picks up his own trowel, and for the first time, he approaches the weeds with curiosity rather than anger. He notices their shapes, their colors, the way they grow toward the sun. He pulls them out gently, not with force, but with intention. And when he misses one, he doesn't get upset. He just makes a note to come back to it later as he works. He feels a sense of peace that he hasn't felt in weeks. The garden no longer feels like a battle to be won, but a living thing to be nurtured, flaws and all. As you drift towards sleep, carry this image with you. Let it remind you that you are more than your negative emotions, and that peace comes not from eliminating them, but from learning to live with them, with compassion and understanding not now. Let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation, deeper into the acceptance of all parts of yourself. Peace comes from within. It is found in the garden of your mind, where even the weeds have a place. Kaido eventually became known as one of the best gardeners in the region. People traveled from far and wide to see his garden, not because it was perfect, but because it was alive, full of color, texture, and life. When they asked him his secret, he would say, "I don't fight the weeds, I learn from them." As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember that our negative emotions are not something to be feared or fought, but something to be understood and accepted. Let us remember that peace comes from tending to our inner garden with compassion, and that even the weeds have something to teach us not now. Let's leave the garden behind and journey to a mountain temple where the sound of a bell echoes through. The valleys carrying a lesson about time, presence, and the art of living in the moment. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the scent of the garden fade and let your ears attune to a new sound, a deep, resonant bell, its tone rich and full, echoing through the mountains. Imagine a temple perched on a hillside, its red wooden gates standing out against the green of the forest that surrounds it. The temple is old, its walls weathered by wind and rain, but it stands strong, a testament to the passage of time. Inside the temple grounds, a bell tower rises high above the other buildings. At the top of the tower, a large bronze bell hangs, its surface polished smooth by centuries of use. Each morning at dawn and each evening at dusk, the bell is rung, its sound carrying for miles, waking the sleeping and calming the restless. A young monk named Yuki is responsible for ringing the bell. Each evening, as the sun dips below this horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Yuki climbs the steep stone stairs to the bell tower. He carries a large wooden beam, its end padded with leather, and when he reaches the top, he stands for a moment, looking out over the valley below, before raising the beam and striking the bell. The first note booms out, deep and low, vibrating in Yuki's chest. He strikes the bell again and again, each note echoing the one before, creating a rhythm that seems to pulse like a heartbeat. The sound fills the valley, wrapping around the trees, the rocks, the small villages below, and for a moment, everything seems to stand still, as if listening. YUK I has been ringing the bell for 6 months, but he still hasn't gotten used to it. Not the physical part, he's grown strong from the daily task, but the emotional part. Each time he strikes the bell, he feels a sense of unease, as if there's something he's missing, something he's supposed to understand, but doesn't. Bell is rung to mark the end of the day, to signal that it's time for evening meditation, for quiet reflection, for letting go of the worries of the day. But Yuki can't let go. His mind is always elsewhere, replaying a conversation he had that went wrong, worrying about a task he has to complete tomorrow, thinking about his family, whom he hasn't seen in years. As he rings the bell this evening, his thoughts are on a mistake he made earlier that day. He was copying a sacred text, and he'd made a small error, a miswritten character, and when the head monk had pointed it out, Yuki had felt a surge of shame. Now, hours later, he can't stop thinking about it. I should have been more careful, he mutters to himself, striking the bell harder than he should. I should have done better. The bell's tone changes, becoming sharper, more urgent, as if reflecting Yuki's inner turmoil. He doesn't notice. He's too caught up in his thoughts, in his regret, in his fear of being judged. When he finishes ringing the bell, he heads back down the stairs, his shoulders hunched, his mind still racing. As he walks through the temple grounds, he passes Master Ryo, the head monk, who is standing under a cherry tree, watching the sunset. Yuki, Master Ryo says, his voice soft. Come here. Yuki hesitates, then walks over, bowing his head. Yes, Master? Master Ryo looks at him, his eyes wise and kind. You are troubled, he says. What is weighing on your mind? Yuki tells him about the mistake he made, about the shame he feels, about how he can't stop thinking about it. I keep replaying it in my head, he says, wishing I could go back and do it differently. Master Ryo nods. I see, he says. And what do you think this accomplishes? Does replaying the past change it? Does it make you feel better? Yuki shakes his head. No, he says. It just makes me feel worse. But I can't help. It's like my mind is stuck. Master Ryo smiles. The bell has been ringing for hundreds of years, he says. Long before either of us was born, and long after we are gone, it will continue to ring. Each note is perfect in its own way, but it does not linger. It sounds, then it fades, making way for the next note. It does not regret the note that came before, or worry about the note that is to come. It just is fully, completely in the moment. Yuki looks confused. What does the bell have to do with my mistake? He asks. Everything, Master Ryo says. The bell teaches us about time, about how the past is gone, the future is not yet here, and all we have is now. Your mistake is like a note that has already sounded. It exists, but it cannot be changed. Holding on to it is like trying to hold on to the sound of the bell after it has faded. It is impossible, and it only causes suffering. He continues, and your worry about the future, about what others think of you, about making more mistakes, is like worrying about the next note before it has sounded. It is a waste of energy, for the future is unknowable. All we can do is ring the next note as best we can, with presence and intention. Yuki thinks about this as they stand there, watching the last of the sunlight fade from the sky. He thinks about the bell, how each note is separate, yet part of a larger whole. He thinks about how the bell doesn't judge its own notes, doesn't call one good and another bad. It just rings them, one after the other, without attachment. But how do I let go of the past? Yuki asks, how do I stop worrying about the future? You practice, Master Ryo says. You practice being present in this moment with whatever is happening. You practice noticing when your mind has wandered to the past or the future, and gently bringing it back. You practice ringing the bell of your life, one note at a time, without regret or fear. He pauses, then says, "Tomorrow morning, when you ring the bell at dawn, I want you to pay attention. Really listen to the sound. Feel it in your body. Notice how it begins, how it grows, how it fades. And as you do, let go of everything else, the mistakes, the worries, the plans. Just be with the bell in that moment." Yuki nods, determination in his eyes. "I will try, Master." "Good," Master Ryo says. "Now, let us go to evening meditation. It is time to let the day end." The next morning, Yuki wakes before dawn. The sky is still dark, filled with stars, and the air is cool, with a hint of mist. He climbs the stairs to the bell tower, his steps slower than usual, his mind more focused. He stands at the top, looking out over the valley, which is wrapped in darkness, and takes a deep breath. He raises the wooden beam and strikes the bell. The first note booms out, and this time, Yuki listens. He feels the vibration in his chest, the way it travels down his arms and legs, grounding him. He notices the way the sound fills the tower, then spills out into the valley, chasing away the silence. He watches as the note rises, then falls. Fading into the morning air dot, he strikes the bell again and again, each time focusing on the sound, on the sensation, on the present moment. He doesn't think about the mistake he made yesterday or about what the day ahead will bring. He just rings the bell fully and completely. When he finishes, he feels a sense of peace he hasn't felt in a long time. It's not that his worries have disappeared. They're still there, somewhere in the back of his mind, but they no longer have power over him. He knows that the past is gone, the future is unknowable, and all he has is now. This story of Yuki. And the bell is a lesson in the power of living in the present moment. It is a reminder that time is a river, always flowing forward, and that we cannot step into the same river twice. The past is gone, the future is not yet here, and the only moment we ever truly have is now. The Buddha taught this extensively. He said, "The past is already gone, the future is not yet here. There's only one moment for you to live, and that is the present moment." He taught that our suffering comes from our attachment to the past, our regrets, our resentments, our longing for things to be different, and our anxiety about the future, our worries, our fears, our need to control what happens next. When we live in the present moment, we free ourselves from this suffering. We learn to accept what is, without judgment or resistance, and to find peace in the here and now. Modern psychology calls this mindfulness. And research has shown that it has numerous benefits for our mental and physical health. It reduces stress, anxiety, and depression, improves focus and concentration, and even boosts the immune system. Neuroscientists have found that practicing mindfulness changes the structure of the brain. It increases the thickness of the prefrontal cortex, which is associated with attention and self-awareness, and decreases the size of the amygdala, which is associated with fear and stress. This helps us to stay calm and focused. Even in difficult situations, peace comes from within. It is found in the present moment, not in the past or the future. It is the ability to be fully alive, right here, right now, without regret or fear. Peace comes from within. It is the sound of the bell ringing in the present, without attachment to what came before or what will come after God now. Let's take a moment to practice living in the present. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment, then exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, notice the sensations in your body, the feeling of the air moving in and out of your lungs, the rise and fall of your chest, the weight of your body against the surface you're sitting or lying on as you continue to breathe. Notice if your mind wanders to the past or the future. If it does, gently bring it back to the present moment, to the sensation of your breath. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, say silently to yourself, I am here. I am now. I am alive. Notice how this feels. Notice the sense of calm, of clarity that comes from being fully present. Peace comes from within. It is the present moment, waiting for us to notice it. YUK. I continued to practice living in the present, and over time, it became easier. He found that when he rang the bell, he could lose himself in the sound, in the vibration, in the moment. He learned to apply this to other parts of his life, to when he meditated, when he ate, when he talked to his fellow monks. He discovered that living in the present didn't mean ignoring the past or the future. It meant learning from the past without being defined by it, and planning for the future without being consumed by it. It meant finding a balance between honoring what has been and preparing for what will be, while always staying rooted in the awe. Now, one day, Master Ryo watched Yuki ring the bell and smiled. You have learned the lesson of the bell, he said. YUK. I bowed his head. I am still learning, Master, he said. That is the point, Master Ryo said. The bell keeps ringing, and we keep learning. There is no end to the practice, just as there is no end to the present moment. This is the gift of living in the present. It is a practice that never ends, a journey that is always unfolding. It is a reminder that life is not a destination, but a series of moments, each one precious, each one an opportunity to be fully alive. So, what does this mean for you tonight? It means that the regrets of the past and the worries of the future that are keeping you awake are just thoughts. They are not reality. The only reality is this moment, right here, right now, and in this moment, you are safe, you are alive, and you are okay. Tonight's practice is to live in the present moment. As you fall asleep, as you lie in bed, close your eyes and bring your attention to your breath. Notice the sensation of the air moving in and out of your body, the rise and fall of your chest, the feeling of your body against the mattress. If your mind wanders to the past or the future, gently bring it back to your breath. Don't judge yourself for wandering, just notice. And return as you drift towards sleep. Say silently to yourself, I let go of the past. I release the future. I am here now. Let this be your last thought before sleep takes you. The peace of the present moment, the sound of the bell, ringing on and on. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into the present moment, deeper into peace. Peace comes from within. It is the present moment, and it is always available to you. YUK, I eventually became the head monk of the temple, and he taught others. The lesson of the bell. He would often say, the bell rings once, and then it is gone. So too does this moment. Cherish it, for it will never come again. As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember that the present moment is all we ever have, and that peace is found in embracing it, fully and completely. Let us remember to ring the bell of our lives with presence and intention, one note at a time. Now, let's leave the bell tower behind and journey to a busy road, where a traveler carries a heavy burden, a burden of regrets, of worries, of attachments, and where he is about to learn that the only way to find peace is to let go. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the echo of the bell fade into the distance and turn your attention to a dusty road that winds through a vast plain. The sun beats down relentlessly, painting the landscape in hues of gold and brown, and the air shimmers with heat. Along this road, a traveler walks slowly, his steps heavy and labored. His name is Jen, and he carries a large, tattered backpack that sags under the weight of its contents. The backpack is old, its straps frayed, its fabric stained with mud and sweat. It looks as if it has been carried for miles, through all kinds of weather, and it hangs off Jen's shoulders at an awkward angle, pulling him forward and down. Jen's face is lined with exhaustion. His clothes are dirty and sweat-soaked, his lips chapped, his eyes sunken. Each step he takes is a struggle, and he pauses frequently, bending over to catch his breath, his hands on his knees. If you were to look inside Jen's backpack, you would find a strange collection of items. A broken pocket watch that no longer tells time, but which Jen refuses to discard because it was a gift from his father. A letter from a former lover, its words now faded, but which Jen reads over and over, reliving the past. A stone from a mountain he climbed years ago, a reminder of a moment of triumph. A list of mistakes he has made, written on a scrap of paper, which he pulls out whenever he feels the need to punish himself. And countless other trinkets, each one tied to a memory, a regret, a hope, or a fear. Jen has been carrying this backpack for years, ever since he set out on his journey. At first, it was light, manageable, but over time, he has added more and more to it until it has become a burden that threatens to crush him. He can't remember exactly when it got so heavy, but he knows that he can't go on like this much. Longer. As the sun reaches its highest point, Jen stumbles and falls to his knees, the backpack hitting the ground with a thud. He sits back, his back against a rock, and closes his eyes, tears streaming down his face. I can't do this anymore, he says, his voice hoarse. I can't carry this burden any longer. Just then, an old woman appears, walking along the road from the opposite direction. She is dressed simply, in a plain cotton dress, and she carries a small basket in her hand. She moves with ease, her steps light, despite the heat and the distance she must have traveled. She stops when she sees Jen, her eyes filled with compassion. Are you all right? she asks, kneeling down beside him. Chen shakes his head, unable to speak. He gestures to the backpack, and the woman nods, as if she understands. May I ask what you're carrying? She says. Chen looks at her, then at the backpack, and a flood of emotions washes over him. Sadness, anger, guilt, shame. He begins to list the items, his voice breaking as he talks about the pocket watch, the letter, the stone, the list of mistakes. I can't let them go, he says finally. They're part of who I am. If I get rid of them, who will I be? The woman listens quietly, her eyes never leaving his face. When he finishes, she reaches out and touches the backpack gently, as if testing its weight. This is a heavy burden, she says. Does it bring you joy? Jen is surprised by the question. Joy? No, of course not. It's a burden. But I have to carry it. It's my responsibility. Why? The woman asks. Because these things matter, Jen says. They're important. If I forget them, I'll lose part of myself. The woman smiles. Do you think a tree is less of a tree when it sheds its leaves in the fall? Do you think a river is less of a river when it lets go of the stones it carries? Jen thinks about this. No, he says, but that's different. Those are natural things. This is my life. Is there nothing natural about letting go? The woman says, we are born, we grow, we change. We let go of the things that no longer serve us. It is the natural cycle of life. Holding on to what has passed is like trying to stop the river from flowing. It is impossible, and it only causes suffering. She points to the pocket watch. That watch no longer tells time. It is broken. Carrying it does not honor your father's memory. It only weighs you down. She points to the letter. That relationship has ended. Reading the letter over and over does not bring it back. It only keeps you stuck in the past. She points to the stone. That mountain is still there, whether you carry the stone or not. The memory of climbing it is in your heart, not in the stone. She points to the list of mistakes. We all make mistakes. They are how we learn, how we grow. But carrying them with you, punishing yourself for them, does not change what happened. It only prevents you from moving forward. Jen sits silently, the woman's words washing over him. He has never thought about it this way. He has always believed that. He had to hold on to these things, that letting go meant forgetting, meant being ungrateful, meant being weak. But as he looks at the backpack, with its frayed straps and heavy contents, he realizes how tired he is, how much energy he has wasted carrying it. What should I do? He asks, his voice barely a whisper. The woman stands up and holds out her hand. Let go, she says. Chen looks at her hand, then at the backpack. He reaches for the straps, his fingers trembling, and unbuckles them. He pulls the backpack off his shoulders, and for a moment, he feels lightheaded, as if he might float away. He hasn't felt this light in years. The woman helps him lift the backpack and set it on the ground. Now, she says, take out one thing and tell me why you carry it. Jen reaches inside and pulls out the pocket watch. He runs his finger over its broken face, tears in his eyes. My father gave this to me on my 16th birthday. He said it would help me remember that time is precious. but he died a year later, and I couldn't bear to part with it. It feels like the only thing I have left of him. The woman takes the watch from his hand and looks at it. Your father wanted you to remember that time is precious, she says. But are you honoring his wish by carrying a broken watch that reminds you of loss? Or would you honor it by living fully in the time you have? Jen thinks about his father, about the way he used to laugh, about the lessons he taught him. He would want me to live, he says. Then let go, the woman says. Jen takes the watch from her and with a deep breath, throws it as far as he can into the grass. He watches it land, a small, insignificant object in the vast landscape, and feels a weight lift from his chest. Now another, the woman says. Jen pulls out the letter. He reads the first few lines, then looks up at the woman. I loved her very much, but she left me, and I've been angry ever since. I carry this letter to remind myself not to trust anyone, not to get hurt again. Does carrying this letter protect you from being hurt? The woman asks. Or does it keep you from opening your heart to new love, new connections? Jen thinks about the years he has spent alone, pushing people away, afraid to trust. It keeps me from living, he says. He tears the letter into small pieces and lets them scatter in the wind. One by one, Jen takes the items out of the backpack, the stone, the list of mistakes, the trinkets, and lets them go. With each one, he feels lighter, freer. He tells the woman about each item, and she listens, helping him see that holding on is not honoring the past, but imprisoning himself in it. When the backpack is empty, Jen looks at it, surprised by how light it is. It's empty, he says. Not empty, the woman says. Open, ready to be filled with new experiences, new memories, new joys. But this time, you can choose what to carry. You can choose to carry only what brings you joy, what serves you, what helps you grow. Jen stands up, and for the first time in years, he feels tall, straight, unburdened. He takes a step forward, and it feels like flying. He takes another step and another, and soon he is walking and running through the grass, laughing, feeling. The sun on his face and the wind in his hair. When he turns around, the woman is gone. But he knows she has given him a great gift, the gift of letting go. This story of Jen and his backpack is a metaphor for the burdens we carry in life. The regrets, the resentments, the fears, the attachments that weigh us down and prevent us from living fully. These burdens are not just emotional. They can be physical too, manifesting as tension in our bodies, as illness, as exhaustion. The Buddha taught extensively about the importance of letting go. He said, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, and cross over to the other shore. He taught that attachment is the root of suffering, that when we cling to things, people, or ideas, we set ourselves up for pain, because all things are impermanent. Letting go is not about forgetting the past or denying our emotions. It is about accepting what has happened, learning from it, and then releasing it so that we can move forward. It is about recognizing that we cannot change the past, but we can choose how much power we let it have over our present and future. Modern psychology calls this emotional detachment, but it is not the same as being cold or unfeeling. It is about creating a healthy distance between ourselves and our thoughts and emotions, so that we are not consumed by them. It is about recognizing that we are not our thoughts, our emotions, or our past experiences. We are so much more. Research has shown that holding on to negative emotions and past traumas can have a significant impact on our physical and mental health. It can increase stress, anxiety, and depression, weaken the immune system, and even lead to chronic illness. Letting go, on the other hand, has been shown to reduce stress, improve mood, and increase resilience. Peace comes from within. It is found when we let go of the burdens that weigh us down, when we stop clinging to what no longer serves us, and when we open ourselves up to the present moment. Peace comes from within. It is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to release the things that make the struggle harder. Now, let's take a moment to practice letting go. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment, then exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, bring to mind a burden you're carrying, a regret, a resentment, a fear, or an attachment. Imagine that this burden is an item in a backpack, something heavy and cumbersome that you have been carrying for a long time. Notice how it feels in your body, the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your heart. As you inhale, imagine lifting the backpack off your shoulders, feeling the weight of it in your hands. As you exhale, imagine setting it down gently on the ground in front of you. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, imagine opening the backpack and taking out the item that represents your burden. Look at it, acknowledge it, and then imagine throwing it away far away, where it can no longer hurt you or weigh you down. Take one more deep breath in, and as you exhale, imagine closing the backpack and leaving it behind, walking away from it with lightness in your step. Notice how this feels. Notice the sense of relief, of freedom that comes from letting go. Peace comes from within. It is found when we release the burdens we have been carrying and allow ourselves to be light, to be free, to be present. Jen continued his journey, but he traveled differently now. He still carried the backpack, but it was light, almost empty. He added things to it occasionally, a shell from a beach he visited, a drawing by a child he met along the way, a flower he picked because it made him smile, but he was careful not to hold on to anything that didn't bring him joy. He learned that letting go is not a one-time event, but a practice. There were times when he found himself picking up old burdens, old regrets, old fears, but he would notice them, acknowledge them, and then let them go again. Each time, it got easier. He also learned that letting go does not mean forgetting. He still remembered his father, but with love, not sadness. He still remembered his former lover, but with acceptance, not anger. He still remembered his mistakes, but with compassion, not guilt. The memories were still there, but they no longer had power over him. This is the gift of letting go. It allows us to carry our memories with us, but without the weight of pain or regret. It allows us to honor the past, but not be imprisoned by it. It allows us to move forward, light and free, ready to embrace whatever life brings. So, what does this mean for you tonight? It means that the burdens you are carrying, the regrets, the resentments, the fears, do not have to define you. You do not have to carry them forever. You can choose to let them go, to release them, to set them down and walk away. Tonight's practice is to let go of one burden before you sleep. Take a few moments to sit quietly and close your eyes. Bring to mind a burden you have been carrying, a regret, a resentment, a fear, or an attachment. Imagine that this burden is a physical object, something you can see and touch. Notice how it feels in your hands, how heavy it is, how it makes you feel. Now, imagine setting it down gently on the ground in front of you. You don't have to destroy it, or bury it, or throw it away. Just set it down and step back. Look at it and say silently to yourself, I have carried this for a long time, but I don't need to carry it anymore. I release it. I am free. As you drift towards sleep, carry this feeling of freedom with you. Let it remind you that you have the power to let go, and that peace is waiting for you on the other side. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself growing lighter, freer, more at peace. Peace comes from within. It is found when we let go of what no longer serves us and open ourselves up to the beauty and possibility of the present moment. Chen eventually reached his destination, but the journey had changed him more than the destination ever could. He had learned that the most important thing is not where you are going, but how you travel light, free, and open to the journey. As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember that we have the power to let go of the burdens that weigh us down, and that peace is found in that release. Let us remember to travel through life light and free, ready to embrace whatever comes our way. Now, let's leave the dusty road behind and journey to a quiet pond where a monk is about to learn a lesson about perception, about seeing things as they are, not as we think they are. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the dust of the road settle and let your gaze turn to a quiet pond, its surface dark and still as a sheet of obsidian. The pond is surrounded by willow trees, their long, slender branches dipping into the water, creating tiny ripples that spread outward, then vanish. Above, the moon hangs full and bright, its silver light spilling over the landscape, turning the water into a pool of liquid moonlight. By the pond, a young monk named Michio sits on a stone, staring at the water. In his hand, he holds a small cup, which he dips into the pond, filling it with water. When he lifts it, the moon-perfect, round, and glowing shines back at him from the cup. He smiles, then pours the water back into the pond, and the moon returns to its place in the water, unbroken, unharmed. Michio has been sitting here for hours, watching the moon in the water. He is a student of Master Dogen, a Zen teacher known for his teachings on seeing things as they are. Master Dogen has told him to study the moon in the water, and Michio is trying to understand why. At first, he thought it was a lesson about reflection, that the moon in the water is not the real moon, just a reflection. But Master Dogen had shaken his head when Michio had said this. Is the reflection not real? He had asked. Does it not shine as brightly as the moon itself? Does it not cause the same ripples when touched? Now Michio is confused. He looks at the moon in the sky, then at the moon in the water. They look the same, bright, round, beautiful. But one is a vast, distant object millions of miles away, and the other is just a reflection, a trick of light and water. How can they be the same? He mutters to himself. One is real, the other is not. One is permanent, the other is fleeting. If I touch the water, the moon in the pond disappears, but the moon in the sky remains. As he speaks, a breeze stirs, and the surface of the pond ripples. The moon in the water shatters into 1,000 pieces, each one shimmering like a diamond. Michio watches as the ripples fade and the moon reforms whole again. It's an illusion, he says, a trick. It looks like the moon, but it's not. It's just water and light. And what is the moon in the sky, if not light and rock? A voice says behind him. Michio turns to see Master Dogen standing there, his face illuminated by the moonlight. Master, Michio says, bowing his head. I'm sorry, but I still don't understand. What is the lesson of the moon? In the water? Master Dogen sits down beside him, his eyes on the pond. What do you see when you look at the moon in the water? He asks. I see a reflection, Michio says. A copy of the real moon. And what makes it a copy? Master Dogen asks. Because it's not the original, Michio says. It's dependent on the water and the light. If the water is disturbed, or if the moon is hidden by clouds, the reflection disappears. It has no existence of its own. Master Dogen nods. And what about the moon in the sky? Is it not dependent on the sun for its light? Is it not subject to the forces of gravity, to the passage of time? Will it not one day cease to exist? Just as the reflection in the water ceases to exist when the wind blows? Michio thinks about this. Yes, he says, but it's still more real than the reflection. Real? Master Dogen says. What is real? Is something real because it lasts longer? Because it's bigger? Because you can touch it? The reflection in the water is just as real as the moon in the sky in its own way. It exists here and now in this moment. It shines, it moves, it affects the water around it. To say it is not real is to deny the experience of seeing it. He continues, the problem is not that one is real and the other is not. The problem is that you are caught in the idea of real and not real, original and copy. These are just concepts, labels we put on things to make sense of them. But they are not the things themselves. Michio looks at the moon in the water, then at the moon in the sky. But they are different, he says. Of course they are, Master Dogen says. But they are also the same. Both are expressions of the moon. The moon in the sky is the moon as it is in itself. The moon in the water is the moon as it appears in the water. Neither is more or less the moon than the other. They are just two ways the moon manifests itself. He points to the pond. When the wind blows, the moon in the water breaks into pieces. But does the moon itself break? No. It remains whole. When the water is still, the moon in the water is whole again. But does the moon itself change? No. It remains as it is. So the moon is beyond the concepts of whole and broken, real and not real. Michio says, beginning to understand. Exactly, Master Dogen says. And so are you. You are not your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences, though you express yourself through them, just as the moon expresses itself through the water. You are not defined by what happens to you, any more than the moon is defined by the ripples. In the water, Michio sits silently, watching the moon in the water. He thinks about all the ways he has defined himself, by his mistakes, his successes, his relationships, his fears. He realizes that these are just reflections, like the moon, in the water real in the moment, but not the essence of who he is. What is my essence then? He asks. That is for you to discover, Master Dogen says. But it is not something you can grasp with your mind, any more than you can grasp the moon in the water. It is something you must experience directly, without the filter of concepts and labels. As they sit there, the moon rises higher in the sky, and the water grows stiller. The moon in the pond shines brighter, as if trying to reveal a secret. Michio feels a sense of peace wash over him, a sense that he is part of something larger than himself, that he is connected to the moon, to the water, to the trees, to Master Dogen, to everything. He understands now that the lesson of the moon in the water is a lesson about perception. It is a reminder that what we see is not always what is, that our concepts and labels can cloud our vision, preventing us from seeing the world and ourselves as they truly are. The Buddha taught this in his teachings on Sunyata, or emptiness. Emptiness does not mean nothingness, but rather that all things are interdependent, that they have no inherent, independent existence. The moon in the sky is empty of inherent moonness. It exists only in relation to the sun, the earth, and the other celestial bodies. The moon in the water is empty of inherent moonness. It exists only in relation to the moon in the sky, the water, and the observer. This is true of all things, including ourselves. We are empty of an inherent, unchanging self. We are constantly changing, constantly in relation to the world around us. Our sense of self is a construct, a story we tell ourselves, but it is not the truth of who we are. Modern psychology supports this idea, with research showing that our sense of self is not fixed, but is constantly being shaped and reshaped by our experiences, our relationships, and our environment. It is a dynamic, fluid thing, not a static, unchanging entity. Peace comes from within. It is found when we let go of our fixed ideas about ourselves and the world, when we see things as they are, not as we think they are. It is found when we recognize that we are part of a larger whole, connected to everything and everyone. Peace comes from within. It is the moon in the water and the moon in the sky, both real, both part of the same truth. Now, let's take a moment to practice seeing things as they are. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment, then exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, bring to mind something in your life that you have strong opinions about, a person, a situation, an idea. Notice the labels you have attached to it: good, bad, right, wrong, important, unimportant. Notice how these labels make you feel: angry, happy, sad, afraid. Now, imagine taking a step back looking at this thing without the labels. Imagine seeing it as it is, in itself, without judgment or interpretation. What do you see? Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, say silently to yourself, I let go of my labels. I see things as they are. Notice how this feels. Notice the sense of freedom, of clarity that comes from seeing without judgment. Peace comes from within. It is found when we let go of our fixed ideas and open ourselves up to the mystery and beauty of the world as it is. Michio continued to sit by the pond long after Master Dogen had left. He watched the moon rise and set, watched the water ripple and still, watched the reflection of the moon change and remain the same. And in time, he came to see that the moon in the water and the moon in the sky are one, that there is no separation between them or between anything else. He learned that perception is a choice. He could choose to see the world through the filter of his concepts and labels, or he could choose to see it as it is, vast, mysterious, interconnected. He chose the latter, and in doing so, he found a peace that he had never known before. Is the gift of seeing things as they are. It frees us from the prison of our own minds, from the stories we tell ourselves, from the labels we attach to everything. It allows us to experience the world directly, with wonder and awe, and to connect with the deep underlying unity of all things. So, what does this mean for you tonight? It means that the stories you tell yourself about your life, the labels you attach to yourself and others, are not the truth. They are just reflections, like the moon in the water. They can be helpful, but they can also be limiting. You have the power to see beyond them, to see things as they are. Tonight's practice is to see one thing without labels before you sleep. Take a few moments to sit quietly and close your eyes. Bring to mind a person, a situation, or an idea that you have strong feelings about. Notice the labels you have attached to it. And then imagine setting those labels aside, like taking off a pair of glasses that have been coloring your vision. See the thing as it is, in itself, without judgment. Notice its qualities, its characteristics, its essence. As you drift toward sleep, carry this vision with you. Let it remind you that there is more to the world and to yourself than the labels you attach to them. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, and exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself opening up to the world, as it is, without judgment or label. Peace comes from within. It is found when we see things as they are, and when we recognize our connection to all things. Michio eventually became a great teacher, and he often took his students to the pond to show them the moon in the water. Do you see? He would say the moon is in the sky, and the moon is in the water. They are one, and so are we. As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember to see the world as it is, not as we think it is. Let us remember our connection to all things and find peace in that unity. Now, let's leave the pond behind and journey to a quiet village where a craftsman is about to learn a lesson about imperfection, about finding beauty in the flaws, and about the peace that comes from accepting things as they are. But before we go, take one more deep breath beyond yourself. Peace comes from within. Let the stillness of the pond fade, and let your imagination carry you to a quiet village, where the sound of a woodworker's chisel fills the air. The village is nestled between two hills, its cottages made of stone and wood, their roofs covered in red tiles that glow in the sunlight. Smoke curls from chimneys, carrying the scent of burning wood and baking bread. And children laugh as they chase each other through the narrow streets dot in the center of the village. A small workshop stands, its walls lined with shelves holding tools, chisels, saws, planes, and pieces of wood in various stages of completion. A sign hangs above the door, carved with the words Hiroshi's Woodworks, and below it, a wooden bowl sits on a pedestal, its surface smooth and polished, its shape perfect. Inside the workshop, a man named Hiroshi bends over a workbench, his brow furrowed in concentration. Hiroshi is a master craftsman, known throughout the region for his beautiful wooden bowls, cups, and trays. He takes great pride in his work, and he refuses to sell anything that is not perfect. A single scratch, a slight imperfection in the shape, a hint of asymmetry, any flaw, no matter how small, means the piece is discarded, either burned in the fire or given away to be used as firewood. Today, Hiroshi is working on a small wooden bowl carved from a piece of cherry wood with a rich reddish hue. He has been working on it for days, carefully shaping it, sanding it, polishing it. It is almost finished, just one more polish, and it will be perfect. He holds the bowl up to the light, examining it from every angle. The wood grain flows beautifully, creating a pattern that looks like a river winding through a valley. The shape is elegant, with gently curving sides that meet in a smooth, rounded bottom. It is, by all accounts, a beautiful piece of work. But then, as he turns it in his hands, he sees it a tiny crack, barely visible, running along the side of the bowl. It is so small that most people would not notice it, but Hiroshi sees it. He feels a surge of anger and frustration, and he slams the bowl down on the workbench, causing the crack to grow slightly. Perfect, he mutters to himself, his voice dripping with sarcasm. After all this work, it's ruined, just like everything else. Hiroshi has been like this for years. He is a perfectionist, driven by a desire to create things that are flawless, unchanging, eternal. But no matter how hard he tries, he can never achieve the perfection he seeks. Wood warps, tools slip, mistakes are made, and each time he feels like a failure. As he stands there, staring at the cracked bowl, an old woman enters the workshop. She is Okasan, the village elder, known for her wisdom and her kindness. She often stops by Hiroshi's workshop to admire his work, and she has become something of a friend to him, despite his gruff demeanor. "Good morning, Hiroshi," she says, her voice warm. "What a beautiful bowl. Is it finished?" Hiroshi gestures to the crack, his face dark. "Finished? It's ruined. Look at this. A single crack, and it's worthless." Okazan picks up the bowl, turning it in her hands, examining the crack. "Ah," she says, "I see it. It's a small crack, though. Hardly noticeable." "Not noticeable enough," Hiroshi says. "I can't sell this. It's imperfect." "Imperfect?" Okasan says, smiling. "Is there anything in this world?" That is perfect, Hiroshi. Look at the trees outside. They are gnarled, with broken branches, but they are still beautiful. Look at the river that runs through the village. It bends and twists, it floods, it dries up, but it is still life-giving. Look at us, we grow old. We get sick, we make mistakes, but we are still worthy of love. She holds the bowl up to the light so that the crack catches the sunlight, creating a thin line of gold. This crack is part of the bowl's story, she says. It tells of the tree it came from, of the weather it endured, of the hands that made it. It is not a flaw. It is a mark of life, of impermanence, of beauty. Hiroshi scoffs. Beauty? It's a mistake, a flaw. It doesn't belong here. Does anything belong anywhere? Okasan asks. The tree grew because a seed fell in the right place, because it rained, because the sun shone. The crack formed because the wood dried unevenly, because of the way you held the chisel, because of 1,000 small factors that are beyond your control. It is part of the natural order of things. To call it a flaw is to deny the very nature of life. She sets the bowl down gently on the workbench. You know, when I was a girl, my grandmother had a bowl just like this one, with a crack down the side. She used it every day to hold rice, to serve soup, to collect berries from the forest. That crack didn't make it worthless. It made it special. It was her bowl, with its own unique story, and no other bowl could replace it. Hiroshi thinks about this. He has spent so much time trying to create things that are perfect, that are beyond the reach of time and change, but in doing so, he has disconnected himself from the very things that make life beautiful, the impermanence, the uniqueness, the stories. He picks up the cracked bowl, running his finger along the crack. It is still there, still a flaw by his standards, but somehow it no longer seems so terrible. In fact, as he looks at it, he begins to see what Okazen sees, a mark of character, a reminder of the bowl's journey. What should I do with it? He asks, his voice softer than before. Use it, Okazen says. Love it. Let it serve a purpose. A bowl that is hidden away because it is imperfect is a bowl that has lost its reason for being. A bowl that is used despite its flaws is a bowl that is alive. Hiroshi nods, and he takes the bowl to the sink, washing it gently. Then he fills it with water, and to his surprise, it holds the water despite the crack. The crack is small enough that only a few drops leak out, slowly, over time. See? Okazen says. It still works. It still serves its purpose. Hiroshi smiles, a genuine smile, the first in a long time. You're right, he says. It's still a good bowl. Not just good, Okazen says, unique. One of a kind. Over the next few days, Hiroshi uses the cracked bowl every day to hold his morning tea, to collect small nails and screws, to serve snacks to the children who stop by his workshop. And as he uses it, he begins to appreciate its imperfection. He notices how the light catches the crack, how the wood around it has a slightly different texture, how it feels in his hand, familiar and comforting. He even begins to incorporate imperfection into his other work. He stops sanding away every last mark, stops discarding pieces that are slightly asymmetrical. Instead, he lets the wood speak for itself. letting its natural flaws and imperfections become part of the design. And to his surprise, people love his new work. They tell him that his bowls feel more alive, more human, more connected to the natural world. They are willing to pay more for them, not in spite of their imperfections, but because of them. Hiroshi learns that perfection is an illusion, a product of the human mind, not a feature of the natural world. The natural world is imperfect, messy, constantly changing, and that is what makes it beautiful. It is the impermanence, the uniqueness, the flaws that give life its depth and richness. The Buddha taught this in his teachings on impermanence, or anicca. He said that all things are constantly changing, that nothing is permanent, that imperfection is the nature of reality. To seek perfection is to seek something that does not exist, and in doing so, we only cause ourselves suffering. Modern psychology calls this perfectionism, and research has shown that it is linked to a variety of mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. Perfectionists set impossibly high standards for themselves and others, and they are constantly disappointed when these standards are not met. They are unable to enjoy their accomplishments because they are always focused on what could have been better. On the other hand, embracing imperfection, what psychologists call self-compassion, has been shown to improve mental health, increase resilience, and enhance well-being. It involves treating ourselves with kindness and understanding when we make mistakes, recognizing that imperfection is a part of being human. Peace comes from within. It is found when we let go of our need for perfection, when we accept ourselves and the world as they are, flaws and all. It is found when we recognize that imperfection is not a failure, but a sign of life. Peace comes from within. It is the cracked wooden bowl, still holding water, still serving its purpose, still beautiful. Now, let's take a moment to practice embracing imperfection. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment, then exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, bring to mind something about yourself that you consider a flaw, a physical characteristic, a personality trait, a mistake you've made. Notice how you feel about this flaw, shame, embarrassment, frustration. Notice the judgments you have about yourself because of it. Now, imagine looking at this flaw through Okasan's eyes as a part of your story, a mark of your uniqueness, a sign of your humanity. Imagine accepting it, not because you have to, but because it is part of who you are. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, say silently to yourself, I am imperfect, and that is okay. I am enough, just as I am. Notice how this feels. Notice the sense of relief, of peace that comes from accepting yourself as you are. Flaws and all. Peace comes from within. It is found when we stop trying to be perfect and start embracing our imperfect, messy, beautiful selves. Hiroshi continued to make wooden bowls, but his approach to his work and to life was different now. He no longer chased perfection, but instead focused on creating things that were useful, beautiful, and true to their nature. He found joy in the process, not just the end result, and he learned to appreciate the flaws and imperfections that made each piece unique. Years later, when he was an old man, he Hiroshi's cracked cherrywood bowl was still in use, passed down to his granddaughter, who used it to hold her paints. The crack had grown slightly over time, but it still held water, and it still brought joy to those who used it. "This bowl is my favorite," his granddaughter would say. "It has so much character." And Hiroshi would smile, remembering the day Okazan had taught him that imperfection is not a flaw, but a gift. This is the gift of embracing imperfection. It frees us from the impossible burden of perfection and allows us to live fully, authentically, and joyfully. It reminds us that we are enough, just as we are, and that our flaws and mistakes are part of what make us human. So, what does this mean for you tonight? It means that the things you see as flaws, your mistakes, your insecurities, your imperfections, are not what define you. They are part of your story, part of your uniqueness, part of your beauty. You don't have to hide them, or fix them, or be ashamed of them. You can accept them, embrace them, and love yourself anyway. Tonight's practice is to embrace one of your imperfections before you sleep. Take a few moments to sit quietly and close your eyes. Bring to mind something about yourself that you consider a flaw. Notice the judgments you have about it, and then imagine letting those judgments go, like releasing a balloon into the sky. Accept this imperfection as part of who you are. Say silently to yourself, "This is part of me. It is not all of me, but it is part of me, and I accept it with kindness." As you drift towards sleep, carry this acceptance with you. Let it remind you that you are enough, just as you are, and that peace comes from embracing your imperfect, beautiful self. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself accepting yourself more fully. Flaws and all. Peace comes from within. It is found when we embrace our imperfections and recognize that they are part of what make us human. Hiroshi's workshop became a place where people came not just to buy wooden bowls, but to learn about life. They would ask him about his philosophy, and he would show them the cracked bowl, saying, "This bowl is more perfect than any perfect bowl I ever made. It taught me that imperfection is where the beauty lies." As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember to embrace our imperfections, to love ourselves just as we are, and to find beauty in the flawed, messy, wonderful world around us. Now, let's leave the village and the wooden bowl behind and journey to a quiet garden where a monk is about to learn a lesson about patience, about trusting the process, and about the peace that comes from letting things unfold in their own time. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. Let the scent of cherrywood fade, and let your senses turn to the soft fragrance of jasmine and sandalwood. Imagine a walled garden within a temple compound, where sunlight filters through a canopy of maple and pine, dappling the ground with gold. Stone lanterns stand sentinel at the paths, their surfaces smooth from years of rain and wind, and a small stone fountain gurgles in the center, its water clear and cool. In this garden, a young monk named Kenji tends to a bed of lotus flowers. The lotus is a sacred flower in Buddhism, symbolizing purity and enlightenment. As it grows from the mud, but rises above it, blooming into something beautiful. Kenji has been tasked with caring for these lotus plants, and he takes his responsibility seriously. Each morning, he rises at dawn to water them, carefully pouring water around the roots so as not to disturb the soil. He removes weeds that threaten to choke them, and he prays over them, asking the Buddha to bless them with beauty and strength. He studies the teachings on lotus flowers, learning that they typically bloom in the summer months, after weeks of growth. As the weeks pass, Kenji watches the lotus plants grow. Leaves unfurl from the mud, broad and green, floating on the surface of the water. Buds begin to form, small at first, then growing larger, promising blooms to come. Kenji checks on them every hour, it seems, his excitement growing with each. Passing day. But as summer arrives, the other lotus plants in the garden begin to bloom, all except one. This particular plant is smaller than the others, its leaves fewer, its buds slower to develop, while the other lotuses open their petals to the sun, revealing their pink and white beauty. This one remains closed, as if hesitant to emerge. Kenji grows worried. He waters it more often, adds special fertilizer to the soil, and even moves it to a sunnier spot, hoping to encourage it to bloom. But nothing works. The bud remains tightly closed, stubborn, and unyielding. What's wrong with you? He mutters to the plant one afternoon, his frustration evident. Why won't you bloom? All the others have? Are you not strong enough? Are you not worthy? Days turn into weeks, and still the lotus does not bloom. The other flowers begin to fade, their petals falling into the water, but the small bud remains unchanged. Kenji grows increasingly anxious. He fears he has failed, that he has somehow neglected the plant, that he is not a good enough caretaker. One evening, as the sun sets, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Kenji sits beside the lotus bed, staring at the closed bud. Master Koji, the temple's head gardener, approaches, his steps soft on the moss-covered ground. Kenji, he says, his voice gentle, you have been sitting here a long time. What troubles you? Kenji gestures to the closed bud. This lotus, he says, it won't bloom. All the others have, but this one, it's like it's afraid. I've tried everything: more water, more sun, special fertilizer. Nothing works. I must be doing something wrong. Master Koji kneels beside him, his eyes on the lotus plant. Have you ever considered that it is not ready? He asks. That it has its own schedule, its own time to bloom? Kenji scoffs. But the others are done blooming. If this one waits much longer, it will be too late. The season will pass, and it will never bloom. And what if it doesn't bloom this year? Master Koji says. Does that make it a failure? Does that make you a failure? The lotus does not exist to bloom for us, Kenji. It exists to be a lotus in its own time, in its own way. He continues, you are so focused on the bloom that you have forgotten to appreciate the plant itself. Look at its leaves, how they catch the sunlight, how they provide shelter for the fish in the pond. Look at its roots, deep in the mud, anchoring it, nourishing it. The bloom is just one part of its life, not the whole. Kenji looks at the lotus plant with new eyes. He notices how the leaves are a vibrant green, with delicate veins running through them. He sees how a dragonfly has landed on one of the leaves, its wings iridescent in the fading light. He realizes that he has been so focused on the end result, bloom, that he has missed the beauty of the process. "But I want it to bloom," Kenji says, his voice softer now. "I want to see it reach its potential." "And so it will," Master Koji says, "in its own time. Growth cannot be rushed, Kenji. It takes patience, trust, and respect for the natural order of things. You cannot force a lotus to bloom any more than you can force a child to grow, or a student to understand. All you can do is provide the conditions for growth, and then trust that it will happen in its own time." He stands up, brushing dirt from his robes. "Tomorrow, I want you to tend to this lotus as you do the others, with care, but without expectation. Water it, but don't overwater it. Protect it from weeds, but don't hover over it. Let it be, and see what happens." Kenji nods, determination in his eyes. "I will try, Master." The next day, Kenji approaches the lotus plant with a new mindset. He waters it gently, removes a few weeds that have grown nearby, and then steps back. He does not check on it every hour, or worry about why it hasn't bloomed. He tends to the other plants in the garden, spends time in meditation, and goes about his daily tasks. Days pass, and Kenji continues this way, caring for the lotus, but not obsessing over it. He begins to notice other things in the garden, the way the light changes throughout the day, the sound of the fountain, the smell of the other flowers. He finds peace in the routine, in the act of caring without expecting. Then, one morning, as he arrives to water the plants, he sees it. The lotus has bloomed. Its petals are a delicate pink, opening slowly to the sun, their edges curled like the pages of a book. It is smaller than the other lotuses, but no less beautiful in fact. Its late bloom makes it more precious, more unique. Kenji stands there, watching the lotus, tears in his eyes. He realizes that Master Koji was right. Growth cannot be rushed. The lotus bloomed when it was ready, not when he wanted it to, and in doing so, it taught him a valuable lesson about patience and trust. This story of Kenji and the lotus is a lesson about the importance of patience, of trusting the process, of allowing things to unfold in their own time. In a world that values speed, efficiency, and instant gratification, it is easy to forget that some things, growth, understanding, transformation, take time. The Buddha taught about the importance of patience, or shanti, as one of the 6 paramitas, or virtues, that lead to enlightenment. He said that patience is the foundation of all virtues, for without it, we cannot cultivate wisdom, compassion, or any other positive quality. Patience, according to the Buddha, is not passive resignation, but active acceptance. It is the ability to stay present with what is, even when it is not what we want, and to trust that everything is unfolding as it should, in its own time. Modern psychology supports this idea, with research showing that patience is linked to greater well-being, better relationships, and higher levels of success. Studies have found that people who are more patient are better able to cope with stress, make better decisions, and maintain a positive outlook, even in difficult situations. Neuroscientists have discovered that practicing patience activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with self-control and rational thinking, and reduces activity in the amygdala, which is associated with stress and impulsivity. This helps us to stay calm and focused, even when we are waiting for something we want. Peace comes from within. It is found when we let go of our need to control time, when we trust the process of life, and when we learn to find beauty in it. Waiting. Peace comes from within. It is the lotus that blooms in its own time, not ours, and is all the more beautiful for it. Now, let's take a moment to practice patience. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment, then exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, bring to mind something you are waiting for, something you want to happen, or change, or arrive. Notice how you feel about waiting: frustration, anxiety, impatience. Notice the urge to rush, to force things to happen, to control. The outcome. Now, imagine letting go of that urge. Imagine trusting that whatever you are waiting for will happen in its own time, if it is meant to. Imagine finding peace in the waiting, in the space between now and then. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, say silently to yourself, I am patient. I trust the process. I find peace in the waiting. Notice how this feels. Notice the sense of calm, of surrender that comes from letting go of control. Peace comes from within. It is found when we learn to wait with grace and to trust that life is unfolding as it should. Kenji continued to tend to the lotus garden, but his approach was different now. He no longer rushed the process or worried about when the flowers would bloom. He trusted that each plant had its own time, its own rhythm, and he found joy in caring for them, regardless of the outcome. Years later, when he was an older monk, Kenji would tell new students about the late-blooming lotus. That flower taught me more than any text, more than any lecture, he would say. It taught me that patience is not about waiting for something to happen. It's about learning to be present, to find beauty in the now, even when the future is uncertain. This is the gift of patience. It frees us from the tyranny of time, from the need to rush, to force, to control. It allows us to live in the present moment, to appreciate the journey, not just the destination. It reminds us that growth takes time, and that some of the most beautiful things in life are worth waiting for. So, what does this mean for you tonight? It means that the things you are waiting for, the changes you want to see, the goals you want to achieve, the answers you seek will unfold in their own time. You don't have to rush them, or force them, or worry about them. You can trust the process and find peace in the waiting. Tonight's practice is to cultivate patience as you fall asleep. As you lie in bed, close your eyes and bring to mind something you are waiting for. Imagine that this thing is like the late-blooming lotus growing, developing, preparing to bloom in its own time. Say silently to yourself, I trust the process. I am patient. I find peace in the waiting. As you drift toward sleep, carry this trust with you. Let it remind you that life unfolds in its own time, and that peace is found in embracing the present moment, even when we are waiting for something more. Now, let's take another moment to breathe. Inhale through your nose, filling your lungs with cool, fresh air. Hold it for a count of 3, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling any remaining tension melt away. With each breath, feel yourself growing more patient, more trusting, more at peace. Peace comes from within. It is found when learned to wait with grace and to trust that all things unfold in their own time. The late blooming lotus became a symbol of the temple, a reminder to all who saw it of the power of patience and trust. Visitors would ask about it, and Kenji would say, "This flower is a teacher. It teaches us that growth cannot be rushed, and that the most beautiful things in life are worth waiting for." As we move forward from this story, let us carry this lesson with us. Let us remember to be patient with ourselves, with others, and with life itself. Let us trust that all things unfold in their own time and find peace in the waiting. Now, let's leave the garden and the lotus flower behind and journey to a quiet library where a scholar is about to learn a lesson about the limits of knowledge, about the wisdom that comes from not knowing, and about the peace that is found in embracing the mystery of life. But before we go, take one more deep breath and remind yourself, peace comes from within. As we traverse these 10 spiritual journeys, shattered clay jars have become stars in the stream, and empty cups brim with morning dew. May these truths ring softly like temple bells when you need them. Peace comes from within. Awakening is. Now, thank you for sharing this journey from Zen Mind Temple. Good night, dear traveler.